Preface. Top VR gamer Memphis Slater, aka Oleander, found dead in suspected murder. October 2, 2038, Los Angeles, California. Memphis Slater, a professional gamer known by his gaming alias, Oleander, has been found dead in his Los Angeles penthouse. The 28-year-old was recognized as the top assassin class player in the popular VR MMORPG Gaia's Veil, where he dominated leaderboards and gained a massive following for his unmatched skills. Authorities confirmed that Slater's death was the result of poisoning, and an investigation into the circumstances surrounding his murder has already led to the arrest of a suspect. The Los Angeles Police Department (LAPD) has not yet released the suspect's identity, but sources close to the investigation indicate that the individual is known to Slater. The crime was reported late Monday evening after one of Slater's friends, concerned by his sudden absence from an online tournament, contacted authorities for a welfare check. When police arrived at his home, they discovered Slater unresponsive. Emergency responders were unable to revive him, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. Slater was widely regarded as a rising star in the esports world, particularly for his mastery of the assassin class in Gaia's Veil, a game where precision, stealth, and strategy are critical. Under the alias, Oleander, he had built a large community of fans and was considered nearly unbeatable in high-level competitions. His death has sent shockwaves through the gaming community, with many expressing disbelief over his sudden and tragic passing. Fellow gamers and fans have flooded social media with tributes, calling him a legend and an inspiration. "This is a tremendous loss to the gaming world," said one of Slater's teammates from a recent tournament. Memphis wasn't just one of the best players. He was also a kind and generous person, always willing to help others improve. The LAPD has not disclosed a motive for the crime, but a spokesperson for the department confirmed that they believe the poisoning to be an isolated incident and that there is no ongoing threat to the public. Slater's family has asked for privacy during this difficult time, while his fans have organized several online memorial events in his honor. The investigation into his death remains ongoing. More updates to follow as the case develops. For more breaking news, follow us online or subscribe to our newsletter. A sharp gasp pierced the stillness of the room, as the girl startled awake, her heart pounding violently in her chest. Her hands flew to her neck, fingers frantically pressing against her skin, bracing for the suffocating tightness she had felt before. But this time, there was nothing. The air moved easily in and out of her lungs, unimpeded, like a gentle stream. She exhaled shakily, her pulse thundering in her ears as the lingering panic began to ebb, leaving behind a haze of confusion. Her eyes, wide and disoriented, blinked against the dim light of the unfamiliar room. Warm and opulent, the surroundings felt foreign, lavishly decorated in a way that screamed wealth and status. Yet she had no memory of being in such a place. Her gaze swept over the luxurious fabrics, gilded frames, and soft glows of gold. It made no sense. What the hell? Sitting up with a start, her heart leaping back into her throat, she scanned the room as disbelief clouded her thoughts. Her mind scrambled to make sense of where she was and how she had gotten here. Had she been dreaming? Or worse, was she still dreaming? Then, her eyes landed on a full-length mirror that stood across from the bed. The reflection called to her, though her pulse quickened with dread as she felt a gnawing instinct to avoid it. Still, something compelled her forward. She stumbled toward it, her bare feet gliding across the floor as if in a daze, until she finally stood face to face with the image in the glass. Her heart seized in her chest. The face looking back wasn't hers. She stared, paralyzed by the sight of unfamiliar features. Her hands trembled as they rose to touch her cheeks, soft, unfamiliar skin. Her fingers followed the sharp line of a nose that didn't belong to her, traced the delicate curve of lips that weren't hers. Wide, dark blue eyes blinked back at her, a wild intensity reflected in their depths. This can't be real. A strangled cry escaped her, breaking the oppressive silence. Who the heck is this? She whispered, her voice hoarse and shaky. The panic, once ebbing, surged again in a tidal wave as her chest heaved with the weight of her shock. This isn't my fucking face. She stumbled back from the mirror, her thoughts spiraling into chaos. Reflection was undeniable, a stranger's face where hers had once been, but her soul was still there, trapped inside this new, foreign body. Her pulse roared in her ears. Who am I? What happened to me? Her hands flew to her head, fingers gripping her scalp as the weight of it all crashed over her. Something is very, very wrong. A sudden, searing pain shot through her head, forcing her to clutch her temples as the world around her blurred. The agony wasn't just physical, it was mental, emotional, as if memories were being forcibly dragged out from the recesses of her mind, making themselves known. In an instant, they came flooding back, her memories before she died. She had been at her penthouse apartment, the evening calm as she relaxed on the plush couch, the city skyline stretching out before her like a glittering sea of lights. She remembered the way the cool air drifted through the half-open windows, the peaceful hum of life below as she scrolled through her phone. Then, a text had popped up on her screen. It was from Zev, her best friend of nearly a decade. "Hey, I'm downstairs in the lobby with your favorite strawberry rose wine. Coming up now." A small smile had tugged at her lips at the time, the promise of good company and an even better drink lighting up her mood. She trusted Zev. He was the person who had been there for her through everything, failed relationships, career ups and downs, and late-night gaming marathons. She remembered hearing the knock on the door, the warmth she felt as he stepped inside, bottle in hand and a casual grin on his face. Zev had poured her a glass of the wine, just as he always did. They had settled in, their conversation naturally drifting to one of their favorite topics, gaming. Specifically, the upcoming beta test for the most anticipated and intimidating VR game of the year, Sword Art Online. They were both excited about it, the thrill of a new challenge sparking between them. But halfway through her glass, something had felt off. Her chest had tightened, her breaths becoming shallow. Her vision had blurred, and panic had set in as her hands fumbled to grasp at the fabric of her clothes, her throat constricting as if an invisible hand was squeezing the life out of her. And then she saw it, the smirk. Zev's smirk. Her blood had run cold even as her body felt like it was on fire, her lungs desperately gasping for air. He was standing above her, his face calm, almost smug, as if he had been waiting for this moment. She could barely make out the details as her world darkened, but she saw him pull out his phone and dial a number with unnerving ease. She heard him speak, his voice smooth, unbothered by the fact that she was dying right in front of him. "Aubrey, it's done." The words echoed in her skull like a death sentence. Aubrey. Her ex-girlfriend. The woman who had once meant everything to her, but whose possessiveness and jealousy had poisoned their relationship. They had broken up months ago, the split messy and filled with resentment. Could it be? Was Aubrey behind this? The pain in her head ebbed, leaving her panting, her hands shaking as she clung to the dresser for support. The girl in the mirror, this new body, stared back at her with wide, frantic eyes. Memories of her past life intertwined with whatever existence she had now, the weight of betrayal pressing down on her like a lead blanket. Zev, the person she had trusted most, had killed her. And Aubrey was involved. Her mind raced, heart pounding as questions fired off in rapid succession. Why? Why would they do this? How long had they planned it? What was their endgame? She let out a choked breath, her pulse hammering as she tried to make sense of the impossibility of it all. But one thing was painfully clear, someone had killed her, and now, somehow, she was alive again. Different, but alive. And they didn't know. Her pulse steadied as a chilling thought settled in her mind. This was her chance, a second chance. They thought she was dead. They thought they'd won. But she was still here. And now, she would make them pay. As Memphis sifted through the new memories of her current life, she pieced together the details. Memphis Emberlyn Fraser, a 16-year-old girl, and the daughter of Hampton Fraser, the CEO of a billion-dollar gaming company, Nova Inc. The connection to gaming was fitting, her old life and this new one seemed to share a thread of destiny. Her new father, Hampton, was too busy running his empire to be around much. Despite his frequent absence, he had granted her a wish when she asked to be trained in martial arts. Master trainers had been hired, and her new body had become an instrument of precision and power. Memphis was a natural with a sword, a rifle, and acrobatics, all of which she had honed to perfection, seemingly preparing herself for the premiere of Sword Art Online, the very game she had once been anticipating. It was a strange, almost eerie parallel to her former life. Her life as Memphis Fraser was one of quiet solitude, much like how she used to be, though this new body had a reserved coldness about it. Antisocial by nature, she had built walls around herself, rarely speaking and keeping her emotions locked away behind a stoic, cute face. Despite this, she still managed to unknowingly draw people in, especially girls. Her charisma was effortless, but she seemed blissfully unaware of it. The strange blend of memories continued to flow through her mind. Her likes and preferences in this life had a distinct softness to them, contrasting with the cold exterior she presented. She had a love for strawberries, strawberry milk, strawberry shortcake, and anything with that sweet red fruit. Even her favorite animal, the pink bunny, added an innocent charm to this otherwise intense, isolated existence. It was also overwhelming, trying to reconcile her old self with this new life, trying to figure out what had happened and why she had ended up here. But one thing was certain, her new life offered her advantages she didn't have before. She wasn't helpless. This time, she was stronger, faster, and smarter. And though Zev and Aubrey might not know she was alive again, she knew, and she had the skills to do something about it. With a deep breath, she steadied herself. This was her second chance. And this time, she wouldn't be caught off guard. She headed to her walk-in closet. She was wearing baggy yet comfortable pink pajamas and wanted to start her day. Looking through her choices, she saw a lot of pinks, blacks, and whites. With some contemplation, she decided on a black and neon pink oversized jacket adorned with detailed, intricate prints of various art pieces. The designs were predominantly in neon pink, white, and black, creating a bold visual effect. The jacket has additional details like chains and straps, giving it an edgy, punk aesthetic. Underneath the jacket was a simple white t-shirt, which contrasted with the vibrant colors and details of the outerwear. A silver chain necklace with chunky, metallic elements was wrapped around her neck. There's also a smaller necklace with spikes. Her ears were adorned with multiple piercings, contributing to the rebellious look. She chose a belt with studs or metallic embellishments. The pants are black, matching the darker tones of the jacket. She looked hot if she didn't say so herself. "Alright, let's see what I missed," she said as she headed to her computer. An hour in, after she finished last week's news article on GameWire News, she was screaming, "I'm a girl, you idiots. How did you get my gender wrong after my death?" Memphis sat back in her chair, her fingers clutching the edges of the armrests as she reread the article. The headline glared at her from the glowing screen, "Top VR gamer Memphis Slater, aka Oleander, found dead in suspected murder." Her eyes narrowed in disbelief. Not only had they botched the details of her murder, but they had also gotten her gender wrong. Dead, misgendered, and with a whole new life. Great. She took a deep breath, trying to calm the fury bubbling up inside her. It wasn't just the inaccuracy of the news that got to her, it was the fact that the world had moved on. The comments beneath the article were filled with condolences, tributes to his legacy, and speculations about the identity of the murderer. No one knew the truth. No one suspected the real killers. Memphis wanted to scream at them all. Zev and Aubrey. The so-called friends who had betrayed her. The gaming community, which now mourned a version of her that no longer existed. But the truth was more complicated. She wasn't dead, not really. She was here, alive, in a new body, with a new life that had intertwined in ways that felt almost like fate. They think they've won. They think I'm gone. She thought, staring at her reflection in the computer screen. Standing up, she crossed the room, her mind buzzing with thoughts, and came face to face with the full-length mirror again. The reflection she saw was a jarring shift from the person she had been before. How can I still be an androgynous pretty face? Even in a new body. Was I cursed to be mistaken as a gentle-looking pretty boy for all time? Memphis remembered her old face, how she used to look as Memphis Slater. She had always been laid back, effortlessly cool, with long, mahogany hair that she often tied up in a loose bun. Her green eyes, always a bit distant and thoughtful, gave her a quiet intensity that made people notice her without her trying. She had loved wearing comfortable clothes, like the camo hoodie she used to wear, her favorite for lounging during long gaming sessions. Coffee in hand, relaxed and almost lazy in appearance, there had always been a depth to her gaze. Despite her reserved nature, she exuded a natural charm. The Memphis Slater of the past was an unassuming yet striking figure in her own way, with an aura of quiet confidence and mystery. That was who she used to be, sharp, calculating, but with a chill, almost aloof vibe. But the person staring back at her now was a world apart. In the mirror, she saw a striking figure that blended rebellion and elegance in a way she had never imagined for herself. Her vibrant, tousled pink hair cascaded in soft waves, just past her shoulders, giving her an ethereal yet edgy appearance that contrasted sharply with her previous laid-back look. Her new face was sharp and androgynous, delicate yet fierce, with piercing eyes that glinted with cool intensity. Where Memphis Slater had been casual and unbothered, Memphis Fraser was intense, rebellious, and commanding. The oversized jacket she now wore was adorned with intricate designs, a mix of neon pink, black, and white, with chains and straps that screamed rebellion. Beneath the jacket was a simple white t-shirt, emphasizing her effortless style. A silver chain necklace with spikes wrapped around her neck, while multiple ear piercings added to her raw, punk aesthetic. Her black pants and studded belt completed the look, giving her a sense of quiet strength, someone who had seen the world's darkness and survived, now stronger than ever. Memphis, in this reflection, was the embodiment of someone ready to reclaim her life. This wasn't just a new body. It was a new identity, one that was prepared to fight back, take control, and make the world acknowledge her once again. This is who I am now, she realized, her heart pounding with the weight of that truth. Memphis wasn't the same person she had been before. Her old life as the VR gaming prodigy, Oleander, had ended in betrayal and poison. But this new life, in the body of a 16-year-old girl named Memphis Fraser, was something different altogether, an unexpected second chance. And now, she had the skills and knowledge to turn the tables on her enemies. As the article scrolled away, her mind refocused. Her new existence might be tied to the same gaming world she once dominated, but now she had far more than leaderboards to conquer. It's time to play a different kind of game, she thought. And this time, I'm rewriting the rules. The gaming world hadn't seen the last of Memphis. Nor had Zev and Aubrey. They would pay for what they did, just as soon as she figured out how to navigate this strange new life. Like it. Add to library. Ignavia_Ursa creators thoughts. 14 comments 0 vote. Question. And opinion. Should I have the Mick steal all the girls Kirito didn't choose, or should I create an OC love interest for the Mick? By the way, this may trigger some people, but Shannon was best girl. Don't get me wrong, Asuna was beautiful, but she was just too traditional for me. Also, a hot girl with a sniper beats girl with a sword. That isn't a katana. Just saying. 18 comments 0 vote. Decision. Okay, so 90%, including myself, voted for Shannon. Like I said, Shannon is best girl. The thing is, all day yesterday, I've had this silver-haired OC in my head. So I've decided to add her. For those who voted for no harem, does MC having 2 girlfriends count as a harem? If yes, then I need to put a harem tag on my PGEXPBS story. Anyway, expect a chapter or 2 later on today. Hand waving. 12 comments 0 vote. Pissed. Download the app for additional rewards. More events, more perks. Winning you more free perks. Download now. Ignavia_Ursa. Download app now. The launch of SAO. The day of Sword Art Online's highly anticipated launch, Memphis was awoken by Susanna, the head maid of the Fraser household. Susanna, a stern woman in her mid-30s, had medium-length dark brown hair tied back in a severe bun. Her light brown eyes, sharp and emotionless, often reminded Memphis of winter's frost, cold and unforgiving. Susanna had served the family for years, and in all that time, Memphis couldn't remember ever seeing her smile. The woman was always impeccably dressed in a black maid's uniform with a crisp white apron, each detail perfectly in place. Don't get her wrong, Susanna wasn't mean or anything. She actually doted on Memphis quite a bit. If anything, Memphis would say Susanna was like an overdoting mother hen who worried about her endlessly. In fact, just the other day, Memphis came home with a bruise on her arm because she hadn't blocked a hit from Master Sanji, her taekwondo teacher. When Susanna saw it, she started fussing, going so far as to try to wrap her up like a mummy. She had to put her foot down after that. She was smelling like a hospital all day. Morning, Susanna. She yawned as she got out of bed and headed to the bathroom, the maid's heels making a click-clack sound behind her. What's for breakfast? Head cook Irving made the best strawberry pancakes. I hope he makes it with that yummy strawberry syrup he made yesterday. Susanna watched as her adorable young miss accidentally stabbed her cheek with her toothbrush before adequately putting it in her mouth, leaving a smear of toothpaste on the side of her face. She sighed. Her young miss was far too cute in the mornings. I believe Irving is making your favorite berry crepes with strawberry syrup and powdered sugar on top and a side of strawberry milk, she answered as she stepped forward to wipe the toothpaste off the girl's cheek. Memphis' blue eyes sparkled with delight when she heard the words crepes. Seeing the cute expression, Susanna had to use all her self-control not to lose the stoic expression she had developed over the years working for the Fraser household. After washing up and getting ready for the day, Memphis headed to the dining hall for breakfast. As the only child of a millionaire, she had the mansion all to herself when her father wasn't home. She lived a rather lonely life, catered by maids and butlers. The mansion itself was a testament to her father's immense wealth. Built in a modern architectural style, it sprawled across acres, with tall windows lining the front that bathed the interior in soft, natural light. The floors were of polished marble, and the walls were adorned with contemporary art pieces. Every room seemed to radiate a sense of grandeur and understated luxury. The dining room was no exception. A grand chandelier hung above the large mahogany table where she often ate alone. The house staff, maids and butlers, moved like shadows around the house, their movements fluid and efficient. Each maid wore a uniform of black and white, while the butlers wore tailored suits. They were all so quiet that sometimes it felt like they were invisible unless directly spoken to. As Memphis sat down for breakfast, one of the butlers placed a plate before her, berry crepes, delicately arranged with fresh raspberries and blueberries. The thin, fluffy crepes were dusted with a light sprinkle of powdered sugar, giving them a look of decadence. To the side was a tall glass of strawberry milk, her favorite. She took a bite, the tartness of the berries blending perfectly with the sweetness of the sugar, each bite melting in her mouth. It was a brief moment of calm before the excitement of the day. Unaware that all the maids and butlers paused to watch her blissful face. Each and every one of them sighed as they thought one thing. Cute. Once finished, she checked her phone for the latest updates on Sword Art Online, still hours away from launch. The forums buzzed with excitement and speculation, but 11 a.m. felt like a lifetime away. She decided to head out for her usual morning run, a chance to burn off her impatience. Memphis dressed in her typical running outfit, a sleek black and pink sports bra, paired with fitted dark gray sweatpants that hugged her slim, athletic frame. She preferred minimalist attire, functional and streamlined. The soft morning air greeted her as she stepped outside. The weather was perfect for running, cool but with a promise of warmth as the day progressed. The sky was a soft blue, with the early morning sunlight casting a golden glow over the landscape. The park was her favorite running spot, sprawling with long, winding trails that cut through clusters of trees and open green spaces. Tall oaks and maples lined the pathways, their leaves rustling in the light breeze. The air was crisp and filled with the earthy scent of damp grass, a sharp contrast to the polished sterility of the mansion. Birds chirped in the distance, and the occasional runner or cyclist passed by, offering polite nods. Memphis ran for an hour, feeling the steady rhythm of her feet hitting the gravel trail as she listened to Too Sweet by Hozier. Great song. Give it a try if you haven't. Ahead of her was a silver-haired girl around her age, moving with a graceful yet determined pace. The girl was stunning, with long, flowing silver hair that swayed with each step, catching the sunlight and almost shimmering. She wore a lavender sports bra and high-waisted black leggings that accentuated her washboard abs, her figure lean yet curvaceous, with breasts larger than average, a stark contrast to Memphis's more petite, androgynous frame. Despite the girl's beauty, there was something fierce in her posture, a quiet strength that caught Memphis's attention. As they ran past a towering oak, a small cat suddenly leapt from one of the lower branches, landing directly on the girl's back. Caught off guard, the silver-haired girl stumbled and fell to the ground, startled but unharmed. Without hesitating, Memphis slowed her pace and extended a hand to help the girl up. Up close, the girl's violet eyes were even more captivating, deep, almost hypnotic, with a gleam of intensity behind them. There was an undeniable attraction there, but Memphis, as always, pushed such thoughts aside, her stoic demeanor masking any emotion. Thanks, the girl said, dusting herself off as she accepted Memphis's hand. Her voice was smooth, confident, but with a hint of embarrassment. No problem, Memphis replied curtly, her tone as cold and distant as ever. But inwardly, she couldn't help feeling a strange spark of attraction to this girl again, though she didn't pay it any mind. After parting ways, Memphis returned to the mansion to prepare for her training with Master Akira. The Kendo Dojo, located in one of the mansion's expansive wings, was a minimalist space, polished wooden floors and bare walls except for a single calligraphy scroll with the word, discipline, hanging near the entrance. Master Akira was already waiting for her, dressed in his traditional gi and hakama, his demeanor serious as ever. Are you ready? He asked in his deep, steady voice. Memphis nodded, grabbing the wooden practice sword. Training with Akira was always intense, focused on precision, discipline, and control. Each strike had to be perfect, each movement calculated. She lost herself in the practice, the movements becoming second nature after years of training. The feel of the sword in her hands was familiar and grounding, and for a time, she forgot about everything else, about the impending game launch, about the silver-haired girl in the park. It was just her and the blade. By the time her training session ended, the adrenaline coursing through her veins had dulled her earlier impatience. But as the clock ticked closer to 11 a.m., excitement began to bubble up inside her once again. She quickly showered, threw on a comfortable hoodie and shorts, and made her way to her gaming setup. Her rig was top of the line, built for optimal VR performance. Memphis sat cross-legged on her king-sized bed, the soft pink and black of her oversized hoodie cooling around her as she stared at the digital clock on her nightstand. Her heart raced in anticipation. Finally, she whispered, her voice steady but charged with a mix of excitement and cold determination. The nerve gear slid over her eyes, blocking out the world around her. She heard the familiar hum as the system booted up, the whirring of data streams enveloping her senses. A pulse of energy rippled through her, syncing with the technology that would transport her into another realm. Link start, she said firmly. Like it. Add to library. Ignavia_Ursa creator's thoughts. 11 comments 0 vote. A head start. A burst of vibrant light filled her vision, and a rush of sound swept through her ears, like the whoosh of air, the hum of distant machinery. Her body tingled, weightless as the real world seemed to melt away. A dazzling array of colors and symbols danced across her eyes, the system loading screen of SAO filling her field of vision as her senses adjusted to the new reality. In the span of a heartbeat, everything shifted. The sky was a brilliant shade of blue, with fluffy clouds drifting lazily overhead. She could feel the cool breeze brushing against her skin, the faint scent of flowers and fresh grass filling her lungs. The sounds of distant wildlife and the low hum of magic vibrated in the air. Every detail was so real, so vivid, it was hard to believe she wasn't actually standing in this strange, magnificent land. Memphis. No, in this world, she'd go by Strawberry, grinned as she took it all in. The weight of a sword strapped to her lower back, the familiar light armor hugging her frame, it felt good to be back. To be in a world where her skills truly mattered. Where she could use her reflexes, her precision, her mind to dominate once more. The avatar staring back at her in the reflection of a nearby window was a perfect mirror of her new self, lean, athletic, with soft, striking features. Her androgynous face was framed by messy, pink hair with streaks of black, and her piercing silver blue eyes glinted with a mix of mischief and determination. She was a blend of her old and new life, Memphis Slater and Memphis Fraser. 2 lives, merged into one. Her gear consisted of black shorts that reached just below her knees, a long-sleeved pale pink shirt, a black leather chest plate, and the typical shoes a player gets when they first start playing. She missed the oversized hoodie jacket that she usually wore during the beta testing. 2 weeks before the beta testing was finished, she had a blacksmith commission it using cores she had looted from the 10th floor boss. It was her pride and joy, and now it's gone. Hoodies were one of the best things created. Stupid developers and their stupid rules. Resetting all of us beta testers' levels and gains once the game launched was a dumb rule. Saying, it's to make the game fair. Blah. Strawberry kicked a stray pebble and strolled through the starter town, heading straight to the Haranka village instead of grinding in the fields like the other players. She enjoyed fighting opponents who were at a higher level than she was, but preparations were also important. It wasn't fun otherwise. And she wanted to be the first to beat the boss. First-time clear rewards were always an advantage point. Stopping to buy some health potions, she set off at a quick pace, moving through the throngs of new players. She passed through the town's main gates, leaving behind the sea of beginners and the safety of the starting area. The grassy plains stretched out before her, sunlight shimmering over the fields as a gentle breeze brushed past. She could already see players dotted across the landscape, swinging basic swords and weapons at low-leveled boars and wolves. This early in the game, everyone was focused on gathering XP and learning the combat system. The journey to Haranka village was uneventful, but Strawberry made sure to stay on high alert. The path was relatively safe at this point in the game, though she occasionally spotted players testing out their combat skills on roaming monsters. She avoided them, not wanting to waste time or get caught up in low-level battles. Her real challenge awaited her in the village. The small, remote village of Haranka was exactly as she had imagined, humble and quiet, with a few simple houses made of wood and thatched roofs. The villagers, NPCs all, went about their daily routines, some tending to crops, others walking back from the nearby forest with firewood in their arms. It felt like a world alive with people, yet isolated from the larger game world that hummed with activity elsewhere. Strawberry made her way straight to the largest house in the village, her heart pounding with anticipation. The quest she was about to undertake was not common knowledge, but it was something she had discovered through deep research in the game's beta phase. Few players would know to come here right away, and fewer still would know about the anneal blade hidden as a reward. The game had just launched, and the cooldown system meant she needed to be the first to accept this quest to prevent others from getting the reward before her. Approaching the door, she hesitated briefly before knocking. Moments later, the door creaked open to reveal a kindly-looking NPC woman with graying hair tied in a neat bun. She wore a simple dress, her face lined with age, but her eyes were warm and welcoming. Strawberry immediately noticed the faint smell of something simmering in the air, food, perhaps, though the NPC made no mention of it. "Ah, a visitor," the NPC woman said in a soft, weary voice. "It's rare to see someone so far from the main town. Please, do come in." I don't have much to offer at the moment, but I can get you a cup of water if you'd like. Strawberry knew this was part of the quest. The offer of water was a subtle hint, a test of the player's awareness. The pot simmering on the stove, though unspoken, was meant to suggest something wasn't right. She had read about this in the beta notes. The pot was a clue, meant to push players to ask more questions. Thank you, Strawberry said, stepping inside. The house was simple but comfortable, the scent of the simmering stew stronger now that she was closer to it. The NPC led her to a small table and brought her a cup of water. Just as she sipped the water, a soft, ragged sound echoed from the other side of a door, coughing. It was faint but persistent, the weak, hollow cough of a child struggling to breathe. Strawberry placed the cup down and glanced at the NPC woman, whose expression had grown somber. The woman sighed deeply, her shoulders sagging as she took a seat at the table. You've heard, haven't you? She said, her voice thick with sorrow. That's my son, he's very sick. I don't know what to do anymore. I've tried everything I can think of, but nothing works. Strawberry's pulse quickened. This was it, the moment the quest would begin. Is there anything I can do to help? Strawberry asked, trying to sound concerned. She knew the story behind this NPC's plight, but she had to play along, fully immersing herself in the role of a helpful adventurer. The NPC woman looked up at her with tear-filled eyes. There is something, she said, her voice trembling. In the forest to the west of here, there is a rare plant, a little nepenthes. They say its flower has healing properties, powerful enough to cure even the most terrible illnesses. But it's dangerous to go there, the forest is filled with monsters. I can't go myself, and there's no one else in the village brave enough to help. I'll do it, Strawberry said, her voice firm. I'll find the little nepenthes and bring back the flower. The NPC woman's eyes widened in gratitude. Thank you, she whispered. Please, hurry. My son doesn't have much time left. With that, the quest officially began. The secret medicine of the forest was now hers. Strawberry stood, nodded to the NPC, and left the house with a sense of purpose. She opened her quest log, confirming the details, travel to the forest west of Haranka, find the little nepenthes, and bring back its ovule to heal the NPC's son. It was simple on paper, but she knew the real challenge lay ahead. The forest loomed large as Strawberry approached. The trees were tall and thick, casting long shadows over the ground. Sunlight filtered through the leaves in shafts of light, giving the forest an ethereal glow. It was peaceful, but she knew better than to let her guard down. The deeper parts of the forest were home to aggressive monsters, and while she wasn't looking for a fight, she couldn't avoid them forever. As she ventured further, she encountered her first nepenthes, large, pitcher-like plant monsters with gaping maws at the center. They swayed menacingly, their vines snapping like whips as they sensed her approach. Strawberry readied her sword, bracing herself for combat. The regular nepenthes were not what she needed, but killing them increased her chances of encountering the special version, the little nepenthes with the flower. She needed that specific one to complete the quest. She darted forward, slashing at the nearest nepenthes with precise strikes. The battle system was as fluid and immersive as she remembered from the beta, and Strawberry felt herself falling into the familiar rhythm of combat. Each swing of her sword was met with a satisfying impact, each dodge and parry timed perfectly. The nepenthes hissed as it tried to wrap its vines around her, but she quickly severed them, cutting the monster down. For the next hour, Strawberry fought her way through the forest, methodically clearing out nepenthes after nepenthes. She didn't allow herself to get frustrated, knowing that the flowered variant had a low spawn rate. It was all part of the challenge. Eventually, after slaying a particularly tough nepenthes, she spotted something different in the distance, a glowing figure among the trees. She narrowed her eyes and crept closer, her heart skipping a beat. There it was. A little nepenthes with a bright, glowing flower blooming atop its pitcher. Without hesitation, Strawberry charged forward, her sword at the ready. The little nepenthes, sensing her presence, let out a screeching sound and lashed out with its vines. But Strawberry was faster. She sidestepped its attack and swung her sword in a wide arc, cutting into the monster's body. The nepenthes screeched again, more vicious this time, as it retaliated with a venomous spit that narrowly missed her. Strawberry dodged, her movements fluid and precise, and slashed again, this time aiming for the flower. Her blade cut through the stem, and with a final screech, the nepenthes collapsed into a heap of digital fragments. As the monster dissolved, a glowing item dropped to the ground. Little nepenthes' ovule. Strawberry picked up the item, her heart racing with triumph. The rare quest item gleamed in her inventory, a testament to her patience and skill. Now all that was left was to return to the village and complete the quest. Back in Haranka, the NPC woman greeted her at the door, her eyes wide with hope. Strawberry handed her the little Nepenthes' ovule, and the woman let out a gasp of relief. "You did it, you really did it," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Thank you so much." Strawberry watched as the NPC hurried into the back room, where the child's coughing had grown weaker. Moments later, the sound of quiet relief filled the house. The child was cured. The quest was complete. As a reward, the NPC returned to Strawberry and handed her a sword. It was beautifully crafted, its blade gleaming with a faint, ethereal light. The anneal blade. "This sword has been in my family for generations," the NPC woman said. "It is my most precious heirloom. Take it, as a token of my gratitude. May it serve you well on your journey." Strawberry took the sword with a sense of accomplishment. The anneal blade was hers, and with it, she had an advantage few players would possess at this stage in the game. She bowed her head to the NPC, offering her thanks, and left the house. 12 comments 0 vote. Stuck in the game. As Strawberry stepped out of the house, a familiar ding echoed in her ears, signaling the completion of her quest. A transparent blue notification screen materialized in front of her, hovering just above eye level, displaying her achievements. Quest complete. The secret medicine of the forest. Reward: anneal blade. Bonus XP, 500. Item acquired: anneal blade. Attack, +1/2 durability, 45/45. Skill, critical hit boost. Another ding followed closely behind. Level up. Current level, 3 stat points available, 5. Strawberry grinned at the sight of the notifications, her silver blue eyes scanning the information as she mentally filed it away. She quickly distributed the stat points, opting to boost her agility and dexterity to improve her reaction speed and accuracy in battle. As the stat screen disappeared, she felt the subtle yet satisfying increase in her reflexes and mobility, small, but enough to make a difference. A few more system messages popped up, keeping her informed of her progress. Inventory updated. Health potions X5. Stamina potions X3. Little Nepenthes' ovule quest item used. With a flick of her wrist, Strawberry dismissed the notifications, her attention shifting back to the world around. The real journey was just beginning, and Strawberry was already ahead of the game. Just when she was about to take a break, a booming bong echoed through the air, sending an ominous vibration across the first floor, which resonated through the forest. Bong. Her head snapped up, alert. Bong. Again, the sound reverberated, growing louder and more intense. By the 7th bong, something strange happened. A pull, like invisible hands reaching from the ether, tugged at her consciousness. It wasn't painful, but it was overwhelming, and before she could react, her surroundings blurred into a whirl of color. The lush greenery of Haranka village melted away, and the ground beneath her feet vanished. When her vision cleared, Strawberry found herself standing in a massive open square, her heart pounding in her chest. Surrounding her were hundreds, maybe even thousands, of players, avatars of all shapes, sizes, and colors, each of them looking just as bewildered as she felt. Some were shouting in confusion, others had their weapons drawn, and a few huddled close together in small groups, casting nervous glances at their surroundings. Someone had forced a portal, Strawberry realized, scanning the scene with narrowed eyes. This wasn't something players could do. Portals were system-controlled, meant for safe travel between major zones, and couldn't be manipulated by anyone other than the game's developers. What the hell's going on? A player near her muttered, eyes wide with fear. Is this part of the launch event? Another asked, their voice shaky. Strawberry didn't answer them. Her mind was racing as she tried to assess the situation. This wasn't an ordinary event, there was too much confusion, too much panic. As she looked around, she noticed that no one seemed to know what was happening. Players were shifting uneasily, many frantically pulling at their menu screens or attempting to log out. But nothing was working. Instinctively, Strawberry reached up and tried to access her own menu. Her finger hovered in midair, tracing the familiar gesture she'd practiced hundreds of times. The menu should have appeared instantly, but instead, there was nothing. She swiped again, still nothing. Her heart skipped a beat. No menu. No logout button. She wasn't alone in this discovery. All around her, players were realizing the same thing, their voices growing louder and more frantic. Some were furiously jabbing at invisible screens, while others began yelling in desperation. What the hell is going on? Why can't I log out? Is this a bug? Panic spread like wildfire through the crowd. The initial confusion was rapidly escalating into full-blown chaos as players started demanding answers. The square was filled with noise, shouts of anger, fear, confusion, but still, no one seemed to have any information. Strawberry's pulse quickened. She was used to the intensity of high-stakes gaming, but this was different. This felt real in a way she hadn't anticipated. A ripple of energy washed over the square, silencing the crowd for a moment. The atmosphere grew thick, charged with an invisible tension. Then, without warning, the sky above them flickered and warped, as if the very fabric of the game world was bending to a higher power. From the swirling sky descended a massive figure, an ominous, cloaked being, towering over them all. Its face was hidden beneath a deep, crimson hood, but its presence was enough to silence even the most frantic of players. Everyone stopped, frozen in place as the figure floated down from the sky, suspended above them like some divine force. "Welcome, players of Sword Art Online," the figure's voice boomed, rich and commanding, echoing throughout the square. It was a voice that carried authority, one that seemed to resonate with every fiber of the virtual world. Strawberry felt her breath catch in her throat. This was no ordinary NPC. The power emanating from the figure was palpable, and it sent a chill down her spine. "My name is Kayaba Akihiko," the figure continued, "and I am the creator of Sword Art Online." Murmurs of recognition rippled through the crowd. Of course, everyone knew Kayaba Akihiko, the genius behind the groundbreaking full-dive technology and the creator of SAO. He was a legend, a revered figure in the world of gaming. But something about the way he spoke, the cold, detached tone, made Strawberry's skin crawl. "You must be wondering why you cannot log out," Kayaba continued, his voice cold and measured. "The answer is simple: this is not a bug. This is how Sword Art Online was designed." A heavy silence followed his words. Strawberry's mind raced, trying to comprehend what he was saying. Not a bug. That would mean. In Sword Art Online, Kayaba continued, there is no logout function. The only way to leave this game is to clear all 100 floors of Aincrad. His words hung in the air like a death sentence. The crowd erupted into a cacophony of noise, shouts of disbelief, curses, demands for explanations. Players scrambled to make sense of what was happening, but Kayaba's voice cut through the chaos, silencing them once again. "I should also warn you," he said, his tone unwavering, "that if your HP drops to 0, you will die, not just in the game, but in the real world. The nerve gear you are all wearing is equipped with a powerful microwave emitter that will fry your brain the moment you perish in this world." A collective gasp swept through the crowd. Panic was setting in, and Strawberry could feel her heart racing as fear began to settle deep in her chest. Die in the game, die in real life. This couldn't be happening. This was supposed to be a game, a place for adventure and excitement. Not a death trap. Kayaba continued, merciless in his explanation. There is no way to remove the nerve gear from your head without triggering the same fatal consequences. Attempts to forcefully disconnect or remove the device have already resulted in several deaths. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. As of now, more than 200 players have already died. The air seemed to leave the square. Strawberry felt a cold sweat break out across her skin as she stood rooted in place, her mind reeling. 200 players, dead. This was no longer a game. This was a nightmare. Kayaba raised his arms, and with a flick of his fingers, an enormous mirror appeared above the crowd. It reflected the faces of every player in the square, but as the players looked up, their avatars began to shimmer, changing form. The artificial appearances they had crafted, the idealized, fantasy versions of themselves, were stripped away. In their place were the true reflections of their real-world selves. Strawberry looked at her own reflection in the mirror, her breath catching in her throat. Her long, flowing pink hair was gone, replaced by her natural hair, a shorter, messier style, just like in real life. Her sharp features and androgynous appearance, though close to what she had designed for her avatar, were now unmistakably her true face. All around her, players were reacting to the sudden change, some shocked, others horrified. The illusion was gone. They were no longer hiding behind their avatars. They were themselves. This is your true appearance, Kayaba said, his voice softening just slightly. I have given you back your real identities, so you may face this challenge as you are. Strawberry clenched her fists, feeling the weight of the situation press down on her like a suffocating blanket. This was real. Too real. And there was no escaping it. As I said before, Kayaba continued, his voice echoing across the square, the only way to leave this world is to clear all 100 floors of Aincrad. Each floor grows progressively more difficult, and there are powerful bosses waiting at the end of each one. Only when the final boss is defeated will the game be cleared, and you will be free to return to your lives. He paused, the gravity of his words sinking into the crowd. Good luck, players. With that, the cloaked figure began to fade, his body dissipating into the air like mist. The sky, once swirling with digital magic, returned to its normal state, clear and blue. But the weight of his words lingered, heavy and oppressive. For a moment, the square was silent. Then, chaos erupted. Panic surged through the crowd as players began shouting, screaming, and scrambling in all directions. Some tried to fight their way out, others collapsed in tears, and a few stood frozen, unable to process the horror of the situation. But Strawberry remained still, her mind whirling as she tried to come to terms with what had just happened. This isn't a game anymore. Her focus sharpened, cutting through the noise of the panicked players around her. If this was her new reality, then she would approach it the way she always did, with precision, focus, and determination. She had already gotten ahead by completing the quest for the anneal blade, and now, she was going to use every advantage she could get to survive. But first, she needed to find the dungeon. As powerful as she was, she couldn't relax. Monsters weren't her concern. Not really. It was the players that had her worrying. Her eyes scanned the crowd. Somewhere in this sea of panic, there had to be players who were plotting to kill, and she didn't want to be a part of any of that. She turned away from the throngs of panicking players and made her way to the first-floor labyrinth. Things are about to get interesting, she murmured to the wind as she smirked. Strawberry did enjoy a new challenge. Like it. Add to library. Ignavia_Ursa creator's thoughts. 11 comments 0 vote. A strange tag-along. Strawberry's boots crunched lightly on the cobblestone streets of Tolbana, a quiet rhythm that mirrored the thoughts swirling in her mind. The town was peaceful, and for a moment, it almost felt like she had left behind the brutal reality of Sword Art Online. The white-walled windmill towers loomed high above, their sails slowly turning in the breeze, casting long shadows over the streets. The gentle splashing of the large central fountain filled the air, creating an oddly serene atmosphere given the life or death situation they were all trapped in. Tolbana was the second largest town on the first floor of Aincrad, and it was known for its proximity to the labyrinth, a mere 30-minute walk. Strawberry had stopped here to rest and resupply after the grueling fights in the labyrinth, but now that she was back on the road, something felt off. Very off. As she walked through the open gate of the town, leaving the tall castle walls behind, she felt a nagging sensation, like eyes burning into the back of her skull. Her instincts, sharpened through years of gaming and now her experience in Aincrad, immediately screamed at her to be cautious. Someone's following me, she thought, her fingers brushing the hilt of the anneal blade. Instead of continuing along the main path that led toward the labyrinth, she made a quick decision, veering off into a forest that flanked the town. The dense trees swallowed her up quickly, and soon the sounds of Tolbana faded into the distance. She hoped whoever was following her would either lose track of her or reveal themselves. But no one appeared. The forest was eerily silent, save for the rustle of leaves in the wind. Strawberry's eyes scanned the shadows between the trees, her muscles tense as she waited for a sign of movement. After what felt like hours of walking, her confusion deepened. The sense of being watched hadn't faded, but nothing had jumped out at her. That was until she heard a low growl from the underbrush ahead. Dire wolves. She barely had time to react before the first wolf lunged at her from the shadows, its jaws snapping inches from her face. Strawberry sidestepped swiftly, drawing her anneal blade in one fluid motion. The pack emerged from the trees, 5 of them, their glowing red eyes fixated on her as they encircled her, snarling. Well, I was hoping for something bigger, but this will do, she thought, her pulse quickening as the fight began. Strawberry moved with precision, her blade flashing in the dim light of the forest as she parried and struck with deadly efficiency. The wolves were fast, but she was faster. Her movements were fluid, practiced, each dodge, each strike a calculated action. She danced between the wolves, cutting down one after the other. Their snarls turned to whimpers as they shattered into a cascade of polygons. The last wolf lunged at her, its fangs bared, but Strawberry met it midair with a brutal slash, severing its throat in a clean motion. The beast collapsed, dissolving into shards of light. Breathing heavily, Strawberry sheathed her sword. Not bad, she thought, wiping the sweat from her brow. But before she could relax, something strange happened. A small horned bunny hopped out from behind one of the trees. Strawberry blinked, her hand still hovering near the hilt of her blade. The creature was small, white with soft fur, and had 2 short, stubby horns on its head. It didn't look dangerous, if anything, it looked almost cute. She watched as it hopped toward her and stopped directly in her path, staring up at her with wide, dark eyes. It had an oddly innocent look for a creature in this world, which made her all the more wary. Why isn't it attacking me? She wondered. Strawberry tried to step around the bunny, but it hopped to the side, blocking her path again. She frowned. What? She stepped to the right, and once again, the bunny blocked her way. It happened 2 more times. Each time she moved, the horned bunny would leap in front of her, preventing her from moving forward. What is this thing doing? Frustration welled up inside her. What the heck is your deal? She muttered under her breath, staring down at the creature in disbelief. This wasn't how things were supposed to work. The enemies in Aincrad either attacked, ran away, or dropped loot, not blocked her path like some overly persistent bodyguard. She drew her sword, half expecting the bunny to either flee or turn hostile. But it didn't flinch. Instead, it just stared up at her with those enormous, puppy-like eyes, its tiny nose twitching as if waiting for her to make the next move. Strawberry hesitated. Was this a trick? She had never heard of any horned bunny monsters being particularly dangerous, but this was Sword Art Online, anything was possible. She'd faced monsters that looked far more innocent than they actually were. Still, this one didn't seem to be aggressive. Slowly, Strawberry sheathed her sword, her brows furrowing in confusion as she knelt down to get a closer look at the creature. The bunny tilted its head, its ears twitching slightly, and hopped a little closer. Are you trying to tell me something? Strawberry asked, feeling ridiculous for talking to a virtual rabbit. The bunny gave no response, of course, but it didn't run away either. Instead, it took a small step forward, as if urging her to follow. Strawberry hesitated again. This whole situation was bizarre, but her instincts weren't screaming at her that she was in danger. Maybe it's part of a hidden quest, she thought. Aincrad was full of secrets, and it wouldn't be the first time an innocent-looking NPC or creature led players to rare loot or special missions. Fine, she said finally, standing up. Lead the way, then. The bunny hopped forward, glancing back at her as if checking to make sure she was following. It led her deeper into the forest, moving quickly and with purpose. Strawberry followed at a cautious pace, her hand never straying far from her sword just in case the situation changed. After a few minutes, the trees began to thin out, and she noticed something strange, a small, hidden clearing that wasn't marked on her map. In the center of the clearing stood a large tree, its trunk twisted and ancient, its branches stretching high into the sky. The air here felt different, heavy, almost magical. The clearing was quiet, save for the soft rustling of leaves in the wind. The bunny stopped at the base of the tree, turning to face her as if expecting something. Strawberry approached the tree cautiously, her eyes narrowing as she examined it. There didn't seem to be anything particularly special about it, but the fact that the bunny had led her here meant there had to be something she was missing. Her gaze shifted to the ground, and that's when she saw it, a small, glowing object nestled among the roots of the tree. She knelt down and picked it up, her fingers brushing against the cool surface of what appeared to be an intricately carved crystal shard. The crystal pulsed faintly in her hand, emitting a soft, ethereal glow. It wasn't something she had seen in the game before, and there was no obvious description when she tried to examine it. A hidden item. And one that didn't seem to be connected to any of the usual quests she knew about on the first floor. The bunny watched her silently, as if it had completed its mission. Strawberry glanced at the creature one last time, then back at the crystal shard in her hand. What was this? Some kind of key? A rare item? Whatever it was, it felt important. With a final nod of thanks to the horned bunny, she pocketed the shard and turned back toward Tolbana. There was something strange about this forest, and now she had a new mystery to solve. But first, she had to prepare. The deeper floors awaited, and if this crystal was what she thought it was, it might just give her the edge she needed. As Strawberry turned to leave the clearing, the horned bunny hopped after her, its soft footsteps barely audible in the quiet of the forest. She glanced back at the small creature, wondering if it was still trying to lead her somewhere else. But the bunny just stared up at her, its large puppy-like eyes practically sparkling with an innocent curiosity. Wait, are you following me now? Strawberry asked, raising an eyebrow. The bunny blinked but didn't move. Instead, it tilted its head as if to say, of course, I am. Strawberry sighed, rubbing the back of her neck. This was unexpected. She wasn't used to companions, especially not ones as fluffy and harmless looking as this one. But for some reason, the bunny seemed determined to stick by her side. And, truth be told, it wasn't like she minded the company. Guess you're tagging along, then, she thought, trying to make sense of the situation. It wasn't like she could just shoo the creature away, it seemed intent on following her wherever she went. Fine. But you need a name, she said aloud, squatting down to eye level with the bunny. I can't just keep calling you, Bunny, can I? The bunny perked up, its ears twitching as if it understood that Strawberry was about to bestow it with an identity. Now, Strawberry wasn't great with names. In fact, she was terrible at them. Naming things had never been her strong suit, she'd spent hours agonizing over what to call her character in SAO before settling on Strawberry, and even that had been a split-second decision. She stared at the bunny, thinking hard. The creature looked so fluffy and innocent. Something soft. Something sweet. How about yogurt? She offered, testing out the word as she spoke it. The bunny just stared at her. No reaction. Not a fan, huh? Strawberry scratched her chin and tried again. Okay, what about sorbet? The bunny blinked. Unimpressed. Strawberry sighed, feeling the pressure of the bunny's judgment. Alright, fine. Let's see, shortcake. Still nothing. Smoothie. She asked, but the bunny's expression didn't change much. Strawberry groaned in frustration. She wasn't making any progress. What was it with her and bad names? Muffin. She finally offered, a note of defeat in her voice. To her surprise, the bunny's eyes brightened slightly, and it took a small hop forward, as if responding to the name. You like that one? She asked, raising an eyebrow. Muffin. The bunny gave a small bounce and twitched its nose in what looked like approval. Well, look at that, she muttered, a bit surprised at the response. I guess you're Muffin now. But the bunny's reaction wasn't done. Muffin, as he now seemed to be called, gave another little hop, seemingly pleased with the name. Strawberry couldn't help but chuckle, feeling a strange sense of accomplishment. All right, Muffin it is, then, she said, standing back up and adjusting her sword. But let's keep it real, you had a pretty close call with Smoothie there, buddy. Muffin tilted his head as if considering the name Smoothie. Then, to Strawberry's surprise, he gave a little nod, as if acknowledging it as a decent alternative. Wait, you like that one too? You're full of surprises, aren't you? Strawberry said with a laugh. What's next? Parfait. At the mention of parfait, Muffin tilted his head again, clearly liking the sound of that name too. Strawberry crossed her arms, shaking her head in disbelief. So, let me get this straight, you're good with Muffin, Smoothie, and parfait. You've got refined taste, huh? Muffin bounced again, his little horns bobbing with him. It was clear that he wasn't just some random bunny monster. There was something about him that was a little too clever. Too aware. All right, Muffin, Strawberry said, setting off toward the forest path again, her new companion following closely behind. Looks like you're coming with me. As she walked, Strawberry couldn't help but glance down at Muffin as he hopped along at her side. It felt odd having someone, well, something, tag along with her, but there was also something comforting about it. For the first time since this deadly game began, she didn't feel completely alone. Don't think you're getting special treatment just because you're cute, she muttered, though her tone was far more playful than serious. We've got work to do. Muffin just gave a little hop, his bunny ears twitching with excitement. As they made their way through the forest, Strawberry couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to get even stranger. After all, she'd never planned on having a horned bunny companion in this brutal world, yet here she was, walking alongside one. The two of them passed through a stretch of dense trees, and soon the labyrinth's towering stone structure appeared in the distance, barely visible through the tree line. The ominous energy radiating from it was a stark reminder of the danger ahead. But now, with Muffin bouncing beside her, the weight on her shoulders felt just a little bit lighter. This is it, Muffin, Strawberry said, glancing down at her new friend. Next stop, the labyrinth. Muffin stared up at her with his wide, puppy-like eyes, ready for whatever was next. And though she didn't say it out loud, Strawberry couldn't help but feel a small sense of relief. Maybe going solo wasn't quite as lonely as she thought. But that didn't mean things would be any less dangerous. She knew that with every step deeper into Aincrad's labyrinth, the challenges would only get harder. Still, Strawberry was ready. She had her sword, her wits, and now, her unlikely companion, Muffin. Like Strawberry, I suck at naming animals. So, if you have a different name for the bunny, let me know. Ignavia_Ursa Creators Thoughts. 16 comments 0 vote. First floor labyrinth. As Strawberry stepped into the first floor labyrinth, a sharp change enveloped her senses. The world outside was bright and warm, but inside the labyrinth, a stark contrast awaited her. The air was cool, damp, and carried a faint scent of moss and old wood. The maze-like structure of the labyrinth stretched out before her, its towering hallowed trees forming natural walls that twisted and turned unpredictably. These trees, thick with ancient bark, made it impossible for anyone to pass through, forcing her to stick to the defined paths. Their gnarled roots snaked across the ground, partially covered in patches of lush green grass. Though the sunlight was hidden, a dim, ethereal light seemed to filter through the treetops, casting long shadows and giving the place an otherworldly glow. A soft breeze wafted through the maze, carrying with it the distant rustle of leaves, and, occasionally, the sound of a creature moving unseen. The labyrinth felt alive, breathing as though it were a creature of its own. Muffin, her newly adopted horned bunny companion, sat perched on her shoulder, his tiny claws gripping the fabric of her coat. He had grown more comfortable since their meeting, no longer timid or skittish. Instead, Muffin's personality was slowly starting to shine. He would occasionally chirp excitedly when they found something interesting, or nudge Strawberry's neck when she paused too long, eager to keep moving. "All right, Muffin, let's get through this," Strawberry muttered as she pulled her sword free from its sheath, the blade gleaming faintly in the dim light. The bunny let out a soft trill, his tiny tail twitching in excitement. He was no longer just a passive rider, he seemed to understand the nature of their journey now, as though the labyrinth itself had stirred something adventurous in him. He would hop to the top of Strawberry's head whenever she knelt down to inspect an item or ore, looking around like a small, fuzzy lookout. Go. Fighting through the labyrinth was no easy task, as it was filled with various monstrous foes, each one more dangerous than the last. The first group Strawberry encountered were the frenzied kobolds, short, humanoid creatures with blue skin, yellow eyes, and jagged teeth. They wielded rusted axes and shields, their movements erratic as they charged at her with reckless abandon. Their numbers were great, but their strength was manageable. Strawberry danced around them with ease, her agility allowing her to dodge their clumsy strikes. The frenzied kobolds snarled and swung wildly, their axes crashing into the ground where she had been moments before. With a swift counter, she slashed through their defenses, sending them shattering into pixels one by one. Muffin hopped up and down on her shoulder, chirping triumphantly as each one fell. Next came the orc brutes, towering over her at nearly 7 feet tall, their massive muscles rippling beneath their thick, green skin. Unlike the kobolds, these creatures were far more deliberate in their attacks. Armed with heavy clubs, the orc brutes swung with devastating force, each strike capable of shattering the ground beneath them. Strawberry narrowly dodged one of these heavy swings, the gust of air from the club brushing past her face. The orcs moved slower than the kobolds, but their raw power made up for it. Every hit would be lethal if she didn't avoid it. She struck at their weak spots, knees, joints, and their exposed backs, taking them down with precision. Her blade carved through one of the orcs, and as it shattered into polygons, Muffin let out an indignant squeak. One of the orcs had tried to swipe at him, but Strawberry had saved the bunny just in time. Muffin puffed out his chest proudly, as if claiming victory for himself. As they moved deeper into the labyrinth, they faced stone golems, hulking creatures made of jagged rocks and earthen elements. Their glowing eyes burned with an ancient fury, and their stone fists pounded the ground with immense force. These enemies were slower, but their defense was nearly impenetrable. Strawberry had to time her strikes perfectly, waiting for the exact moment when their rock armor opened up to reveal a weak point. Her strikes reverberated up her arms as her sword clashed against their rocky hide. The stone golems let out low, rumbling growls as they crumbled to pieces under her relentless assault. Each kill was hard-earned, and every ounce of effort brought her closer to the boss room. Go. Hours passed as Strawberry and Muffin fought their way through the labyrinth. Each encounter left her stronger, more focused, and more determined. She gathered ores and valuable items from the monsters she defeated, stuffing them into her inventory for later use. Some of the ores glittered with a faint glow, hinting at their high value. Muffin had become more and more animated with each victory, hopping from her shoulder to the ground whenever they looted a particularly shiny item. He had developed a habit of sniffing out treasure, his nose twitching as he pointed out things that Strawberry might have missed. His growing spunk was a welcome distraction from the intensity of the fights, and she found herself talking to him more as they delved deeper. "You think this one's worth anything?" Strawberry asked, holding up a shimmering stone she had found embedded in the wall. Muffin gave an approving chirp, his eyes wide with interest. He hopped up onto her head and nudged her with his nose, as if urging her to hurry up and pocket the loot. She chuckled and stuffed the stone into her inventory. All right. I'll take it. Finally, after hours of battle, Strawberry stood before the boss room once more. She knew what waited inside, Ilfang the Kobold Lord, along with his ruined Kobold Sentinels. The boss fight was going to be a challenge, one meant for a raid party of 44 players. Ilfang had 4 massive health bars, and each time one depleted, he would grow more dangerous, switching to deadlier weapons and summoning more sentinels to aid him. As she pushed the doors open, the cold air of the boss room washed over her, carrying the faint metallic scent of battle. The towering form of Ilfang loomed at the far end of the chamber, his glowing red eyes locked onto her. His body was covered in thick metal armor, only his throat exposed as a weak point. The sentinels flanked him, their heavy maces and halberds gleaming under the dim light. They were humanoid, but their long, thin ears and tails marked them as something otherworldly. Their movements were eerily synchronized, and as Strawberry stepped into the room, they began to advance. This is brutal. As expected of a labyrinth boss. The sentinels fought with deadly coordination, their massive weapons crashing down with bone-shaking force. Strawberry's blade flashed in the air as she danced around their strikes, but even with her agility, the sheer number of attacks was overwhelming. She focused on the sentinels first, slashing at their weak points, their throats, and watching as they shattered into polygons. But for every sentinel she took down, another seemed to take its place. And through it all, Ilfang watched from the back of the room, waiting for his moment to strike. By the time she had cleared out the sentinels, her HP was dangerously low, her health bar flashing red. Ilfang roared, charging toward her with terrifying speed. His massive nodashi cleaved through the air, and Strawberry barely managed to dodge in time, the blade grazing her shoulder. She fought valiantly, dodging and countering as best she could, but the sheer power of Ilfang was too much. One heavy strike from his nodashi sent her crashing into the wall, her HP dropping to a sliver. I can't win. Not yet. I need more levels on me to beat this fucker. With a frustrated growl, she made the difficult decision to retreat. She dodged one final attack from Ilfang, sprinting toward the door with everything she had. The boss roared in fury, but she managed to escape, collapsing against the wall outside the boss room. I need more time to hone my skills. After grinding for another hour, leveling up, and upgrading her skills with the levels she had gathered, Strawberry returned to the boss room, her resolve hardened. This time, the battle went differently. She moved with calculated precision, taking down the sentinels one by one. Her improved speed and agility gave her the edge she needed. Each sentinel fell to her blade, their massive forms shattering into polygons. Ilfang roared in fury as his minions fell, but Strawberry kept her focus, whittling down his HP bars one by one. The battle was long, grueling. Ilfang switched weapons, moving faster and hitting harder with each phase. By the time she reached his final HP bar, her arms ached, her body was drenched in sweat, and her potions were running low. Can't stop. More. Faster. I need to go faster. With one final, desperate push, she dodged Ilfang's wide swing and dashed forward, her blade flashing in the dim light as she struck at his exposed throat. The blow landed true, and Ilfang let out a deafening roar as his massive body crumbled into polygons. She collapsed to her knees, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Muffin chirped excitedly from her shoulder, his little paws patting her head as if congratulating her on the victory. As the final pieces of Ilfang's body disappeared, a glowing treasure chest appeared at the center of the room. Strawberry approached it slowly, her heart racing with anticipation. She opened the chest and found the rewards waiting inside, the hooded coat of the Rose Moon and the mask of the Rose Moon. The hooded coat was an oversized, black zipper hoodie with light pink designs, complete with rabbit ears attached to the hood. The mask was glossy black, decorated with intricate pink swirls, and had a magical property that allowed it to attach to her face seamlessly. Both items were part of a set, and together, they provided +10 to agility, +10 to perception, and +5 to charisma. More importantly, they granted the passive skill Rose Moon's aura, which surrounded her sword in a stunning pink aura. Finally, I got a hoodie. With a satisfied grin, Strawberry donned the hooded coat and mask, feeling the power of the set flow through her. The rabbit ears on the hood twitched slightly as Muffin chirped happily from her shoulder. Ready to go, Muffin? She whispered, her eyes glinting with excitement. Or should we go one more time? Standing before the door to the next floor, she couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. She had conquered the first floor boss alone, something no one else had done. I don't know if a player could actually beat the first floor boss alone, but I figured with enough great gear and health potions, it would be possible. Your gift is the motivation for my creation. Give me more motivation. Ignavia_Ursa Creator's thoughts. 19 comments 0 vote. Second floor. Side note, I will be doing all 100 floors. I think anime missed a lot of potential in not doing all 100 of them, so I'll be reading the manga and light novels to get a guideline on details. On to the story. Since Strawberry's notifications were turned off, she didn't see the world announcement congratulating her on her victory over the first floor boss. Every player became aware that a player had actually been able to solo a labyrinth boss monster. All across the first floor, rumors started spreading about the player Strawberry. System announcement: the first floor boss, Ilfang the Kobold Lord, has been defeated. A single player has cleared the boss. Congratulations to the player, Strawberry. The message rang out across every corner of Aincrad, flashing before the eyes of all active players on the first floor and beyond. Players paused mid-battle, stopped in the middle of conversations, and stared wide-eyed at the notification, stunned into silence. Someone had soloed the boss. For most of them, the idea was inconceivable. The first floor boss was supposed to be tackled by raid parties consisting of dozens of players. And yet, one player, Strawberry, had managed to do the impossible. In the town of Beginnings, a group of players sat in a bustling tavern, their voices lively as they discussed strategies for leveling up when the announcement flashed before them. "Did you see that?" One player gasped, his mug of ale frozen halfway to his lips. "A solo player? That's gotta be a bug, right?" Another asked, her brow furrowed in disbelief. "No way. That can't be real," said a third, shaking his head. "No one's strong enough to take on Ilfang alone." "But it was an official system announcement," the first player argued. "It's real. Whoever this Strawberry is, they must be a beast." As soon as the announcement sank in, rumors began to spread like wildfire throughout the town. Everyone wanted to know more about this mysterious solo player who had managed to take down such a formidable boss without any help. "I heard Strawberry used a rare, powerful weapon that instantly killed the boss," someone whispered in one of the town's bustling marketplaces. "No, I heard they've been training non-stop since the game started and reached a higher level than anyone else," another player countered. "There's no way one person could have taken down all those sentinels in Ilfang. Maybe they're part of a hidden guild that's super strong and just wanted the solo credit," suggested a third player, shaking his head. Some players were awestruck, marveling at Strawberry's skill and bravery. Others were skeptical, convinced there had to be some trick or exploit involved. But regardless of the theories, everyone was talking about Strawberry. Over in Tolbana, the closest town to the labyrinth, groups of players were already strategizing how they would tackle the boss. Some had been planning to form raid parties, convinced that the boss still stood undefeated. They were shocked when the announcement reached them. "I can't believe it," said a player clad in light armor, his jaw clenched. "We spent days preparing for that boss, and now it's already gone." His partner, a tall man with a heavy sword strapped to his back, shook his head in disbelief. "Whoever Strawberry is, they've just done what no one thought possible. That takes skill, or something more." Whispers rippled through the town, each one speculating on Strawberry's identity. "Maybe Strawberry's a beta tester. They've gotta be. No one else could pull that off," a cloaked figure murmured to his companion. "Maybe it's a trap," another player said, his eyes darting nervously. "Someone soloing the boss, that doesn't sound right. What if they've hacked the game?" But most players, even if they didn't say it outright, felt a new wave of hope. If one player could take down a floor boss solo, maybe they had a chance after all. It was a flicker of light in an otherwise grim situation, and many players saw it as proof that escape from this death game was possible. Meanwhile, in small enclaves of the world where players had banded together to grind experience, the name Strawberry quickly became legendary. "You guys heard about this Strawberry, right?" One player said excitedly as he dispatched a low-level boar. "The player who soloed the boss." "Yeah, I heard they used some kind of cheat or exploit," replied his companion, wiping the sweat from his brow. "Nah, man, from what I hear, Strawberry is just that good. Took down Ilfang and all those sentinels solo. Must be insane with sword skills. That's wild. I wonder if we'll ever run into them." As the rumors spread, so did the myth of Strawberry, the solo player who had defeated the first floor boss against all odds. Some players began to idolize them, picturing Strawberry as a lone hero, cutting through enemies with ease and taking on challenges most would flee from. Others saw them as a potential ally, someone to look up to and maybe even follow. Farther out, in the fields beyond the town of Beginnings, where small groups of players were still grinding for experience, the announcement hit just as hard. A group of players hacking away at boars paused mid-swing when the notification appeared in front of them. Wait, Strawberry defeated the boss. Already? No way. There's no way one person could do that alone. One of them shouted, his sword lowering in disbelief. The youngest in the group, a timid player with a small dagger, looked around, wide-eyed. Does this mean we can go to the second floor? The group leader, a stocky man with a heavy shield, frowned. If it's true, yeah. But the fact that someone soloed Ilfang. That's not normal. I've been in other games, and bosses like that take coordination. Or they just take skill, the dagger-wielding player muttered quietly, almost to himself. Whoever this Strawberry is, they've got guts, the leader said, shaking his head. But now that the boss is down, we need to step up our game. Things are gonna change. Players are gonna want to catch up, and we've already wasted enough time down here. Despite the ongoing rumors and chatter, Strawberry herself had no idea what was happening. Her system notifications had been turned off ever since she had entered the labyrinth, and she hadn't bothered to check them after the fight. She was still focused on leveling up and preparing for the next floor, completely unaware of the storm of speculation swirling around her name. As she trekked across the second floor's dry plains, Muffin hopping excitedly along her shoulder, she was blissfully unaware that she had become a legend in Aincrad. Everywhere she went, people whispered her name, and as she pushed farther into Aincrad, more players would soon be looking for the elusive solo player who had defied the odds. Strawberry, however, wasn't interested in fame. She had floors to conquer, bosses to defeat, and a goal to escape this death game. And if the rest of Aincrad wanted to speculate, they could do that without her. She had a journey ahead of her, a long, dangerous one, and she intended to face it her way. 0***go***go***go. Strawberry stepped through the teleport gate, the swirling blue light fading away to reveal the landscape of Aincrad's second floor. Immediately, the difference between the floors hit her, the atmosphere, the music, and the very air around her felt heavier, more somber. The sorrowful tones of an oboe drifted faintly in the background, the melody casting a strange sense of melancholy over the savannah realm before her. Where the first floor had been alive with the sounds of strings, creating a sense of determination and adventure, this floor carried a quieter, more introspective mood. The sight that greeted her was unlike the verdant labyrinth or the dark dungeons she had previously fought through. The plains stretched out endlessly, broken only by looming, flat-topped table mountains that rose above the savannah like ancient sentinels. Boulders dotted the landscape, their shadows long in the midday sun, and scattered among the open plains were clusters of tall, dry grass swaying in the gentle breeze. In the distance, she could see the buffalo-type monsters, grazing lazily but undoubtedly dangerous. Muffin shifted on her shoulder, his tiny claws gripping the soft fabric of her hooded coat of the rose moon, as he looked out over the open terrain. The little horned bunny seemed more at ease in the wide open space, his nose twitching as the wind carried the scent of dry grass and the faint musk of the creatures that roamed the floor. Feels different here, doesn't it? Strawberry muttered, her eyes scanning the horizon. The floor wasn't as immediately threatening as the labyrinth, but the open plains had their own dangers. Buffalo-type monsters might not attack right away, but they were massive, and any direct confrontation with a herd would be lethal. Still, there was something about the floor's quiet, mournful beauty that drew her in. Strawberry took a deep breath and began her trek toward Urbis, the main settlement on this floor. The city was about a kilometer away, nestled inside a crater excavated from one of the many flat-topped mountains. It didn't take long for her to spot it, a massive stone structure carved into the rock, surrounded by walls that blended seamlessly into the landscape. From her vantage point, she could see the winding stairs leading down into the city, each step worn from use. As they made their way down the stairs, the architecture of Urbis came into full view. The city was structured with an almost uniform height, making it possible for someone to jump from rooftop to rooftop. It was as though the entire city had been carved out of the mountain itself, its stone buildings blending perfectly with the surrounding rock. There was something ancient about Urbis, like it had been here long before the players arrived, untouched by time. 10 minutes in, Strawberry was leaning back against the edge of a rooftop in Urbis, the warm, late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the stone streets below. The city's architecture, carved directly into the mountain, provided a quiet stillness that helped ease the weight of the battles and grind from the past few days. She had spent most of the day exploring the northern plains and caverns, collecting loot and dispatching buffalo-type monsters, but now it was time to take stock of everything she'd accomplished. Muffin, ever present, was perched on her lap, eyes half closed in contentment. His tiny claws pressed lightly into her soft, hooded coat of the rose moon, as he twitched his nose in the soft breeze. They both deserved a break. Alright, let's see how we're doing, Strawberry murmured as she opened her player menu, the familiar interface springing into existence before her. With a quick swipe, she navigated to her stats page. Stats, player, Strawberry. Level, 17. HP, 1720. Strength, plus 4-5. Agility, plus 6-0 plus 10 from Hooded Coat of the Rose Moon set. Perception, plus 5-5 plus 10 from Hooded Coat of the Rose Moon set. Dexterity, plus 4-0. Charisma, plus 1-0 plus 5 from Hooded Coat of the Rose Moon set. Weapon, a Neil Blade Enhanced, a reliable one-handed sword, infused with enhancements gained through battle. Passive skill. Rose Moon's aura, a faint pink glow surrounds your blade, boosting agility and perception by 10. This passive aura adds a subtle but mesmerizing light pink sheen to all sword skills. Loot collected. Iron ore X15. Silver ore X8. Mithril ore X2. Herbs healing potions X10. Buffalo horns X6. Ox hide X4. Rare gem X1. Polished buffalo figurine. Strawberry smiled in satisfaction. Level 17 wasn't bad for having just cleared the first floor boss solo and spent a little over a day on the second floor. She was more than holding her own against the monsters here, and the Rose Moon set was doing wonders for her agility and precision in battle. Her gaze drifted down to Muffin, who was now resting his head against her knee, his little horns gleaming softly in the sunlight. The little bunny had proven to be more than just an adorable companion, he'd helped her spot hidden paths and loot on multiple occasions, and his presence had made the journey through the labyrinth less lonely. Guess we're making good progress, she mused, closing the stats menu. But it's time to offload some of this loot. Your gift is the motivation for my creation. Give me more motivation. Ignavia_Ursa creators thoughts. 12 comments 0 votes.